1. On the 56th floor of the Chung Kong Center, a gym is being installed for the bankers who don't have time to walk. Workers can be seen daily carrying weights and mirrors into the elevator, though recently they have switched to the stairs as some women have complained that they have been stared at in the wrong sort of way. Days run like clockwork. The actual founding of the gym is somewhat of a local myth. A chain of events that began when a standard reporter jokingly asked the CEO how much he could bench press. The CEO smiled and proceeded to squeeze the man's hand until it became white. The end result of which was a subpoena and a high-profile court case where a picture of the chairman and the Incredible Hulk were laid side by side. Now, contrary to popular expectation, the CEO took great pride in this embarrassment and commissioned the gym to be built immediately. Last Friday marked the opening of the gym, over which the CEO presided like a victorious king, a bill for a Qing Dynasty Manchu. The gym is a colossal beauty with mirrors everywhere and a spinning room with electronic dance music. The CEO can be seen daily on the bikes where he sweats quietly and hums an old tune he learned in one of the wars. 10 years from now, he will die biking inside. His hulking heart collapsing under the strain of a potential acquisition. Two. Can I get a little more mic? A little bit. 2. A young child was throwing a ball and running after it until it landed on the road. The child dashed into the street and a car hit the child. Hearing the crash, the mother turned and saw her child lying on the road. Its little body mangled and contorted terribly. She screamed and screamed louder. 999 was dialed. The child was pronounced dead on arrival. As expected, everything the mother did for the next few years had a profound weight. She spent the evenings cleaning well into the night, inhaling dust, exhaling industrial clean air. The soap piled up, crowded the wood, the floor. There is meaning in this cleaning, this cooking, these books. The flower shop I used to own, she thought. There is meaning in the stuffed rabbit that belonged to the child. She swept longer and harder after she thought like this. When her husband would come home, he would stare at the immaculate scene and smile sadly. The mother would look up at him for a moment and then go back to her work. When she'd take the requisite break to eat, the husband would open the dining room curtains, letting in the light. First, he would start by pulling one white curtain to the side, tucking it between the bookshelf and the wall. Then, he would turn off the lamp and tie the other curtain around it. The sun shone brightly inside. The two would then sit at their dining room table, quietly eating their noodles, covered them with salt and vinegar and chili powder. The mother had another child later with a different man. She named her Amy and would kiss the child's forehead daily, a thing the girl resisted. Amy was a beautiful child, golden and bright like the one before. To her mom's horror, she had also inherited its wild spirit and would break out of the house and run outside whenever she could. The mother tasked a helper to look after young Amy, and the little girl stopped running away. Over Over the years, there were a few other instances, including but not limited to Amy falling into a swimming pool, Amy climbing up a tree and getting stuck, Amy getting hit in the face by a squash ball, Amy running away in a foreign train station. Each of these times, her mother would shake horribly, and the different man would smile, saying, "Kids." Then they would see that Amy was okay and that everything would be fine. The mother still thought about her previous child, but she also started to think about new things, like bad diets and her graying hairs. At 18 years of age, Amy decided that college was where she belonged, and her mother decided to bring her things along with her. In the car, the mother read a book about designing for small places. Amy drummed the steering wheel and sang an old jazz tune, one that her and the different man loved. Suddenly, a ball and a small child came running onto the road. Amy swerved the vehicle, narrowly missing the child. The child's nanny dragged it back into the house. Amy exhaled and laughed nervously. "Wow," she breathed. "That was close." Her mother smiled sadly and was silent. One Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from my friend's wife asking how I was. She was young, pretty, and I almost never hear from her. So it's both exciting and strange to listen to her voice. The two of us had become close when I'd been over at their place, stuck because of a typhoon. And she and I sat in the living room drinking together. I had a bourbon and water, she gin and water. We both knew it wasn't a real drink, and we joked about it. In the other room, Henry struggled with his cancer. "How is Henry?" I asked her suddenly, reminded by all the memories of her. She had this great auburn hair that always smelled like cherries. "Same as always," she answered. "Has to be the center of attention," she said. We laughed. Sometimes the only thing to do is laugh. There. That was her name. Bear and I talked for the rest of the afternoon until I could only think of dumplings, which meant that I was too hungry to talk. I hung up the phone and went to a nearby Dai Pai Dong and ordered pork fried dumplings. "2 orders?" the waiter asked incredulously. "One for me, and one for Vera," I thought to myself. "Make it 3, I said. 1 for me and 2 for Henry and his wife." But when the food arrived, I ate without any sense of proportion. A man in a restaurant attacking a mountain of dumplings. In the papers one day, an athlete is pictured showing a high school team how to shoot a basketball. The kids all have big smiles on their faces, and the athlete is bigger still. Here he is rubbing one's head. There he is demonstrating correct lateral movement. In the distance, one can see a coach, looking stern, arms crossed, face scowling in disapproval. Everyone reading the paper agrees that it is an excellent photo. But the next day, when the picture is forgotten along with everything not in today's paper, The athlete is at home shooting baskets. The ball drops in like a magnet had been set there. It turns in midair, rushing to the net. The athlete thinks about how he used to play with his best friend. He thinks about the time before the fights, before the incidents. He thinks about the court case and all the disapproving stares he sees on the streets. From that coach. From his own family. The athlete breathes and shoots 100 more shots before going into the comforts of a shower. His wife left him when he had an affair. He's 32 years old. In the shower, the athlete takes some time out of his routine to cry a little. He's been doing this for a year now. Maybe it is his routine. The tears and water mix. The athlete breathes again. More charity work, he thinks. By my redemption, he thinks to himself. The shower is warm. The water is wet. There's no idyllic time, though, for this man. No perfect period to romanticize. When his friend was well, his wife was bad. When there wasn't another girl, there was always another girl. The best he can do, and he does, is steal bits of his life. A ball game in 7th grade, a motorcycle ride in Valley, the shot that sent the team to overtime in the finals. Patchwork quilt, a happy life. At least I'm not a plumber, the athlete thinks to himself and says aloud to nobody. There's nothing worse to him than being a plumber. Days and weeks go by and the athlete has a scare when his heart thumps in a way that he's never felt before. Don't eat steak before a game, the doctor tells him. The athlete loves steak. He'll settle for less though. He's trying to learn how. In the summer after the season, some of the teammates convince him to go to Madrid with them. They meet beautiful women and more beautiful prostitutes. They smoke real cohibas and drink fake absinthe. The athlete wakes up one morning, before morning has started. He watches the sleeping city. He reaches for his ring finger and touches it, even though there's no ring there anymore. Quiet night, he murmurs to himself. Then the vacation is over. The athlete goes to the airport, gets on a plane, and goes home. He takes the public transportation and on the way allows himself to be pictured with some fans. He smiles his big smile on the subway and outside and all the way back to his bed. When the sun comes up the next morning, the athlete picks up a gun and blows his brains out. His hand dangles off the side of the bed. They interview the coach, the teammates, and the athlete's family. The team, the franchise, decides that the team will wear a black stripe on their jerseys to remember the athlete. I'm sorry, everyone tells everyone else, even though nobody did anything. They say it until the stories start to sound like plastic, and everyone feels a little bit better. The newspaper runs a front-page tribute to the athlete. The same picture of him and the high school kids. It is featured prominently, front and center. When I was 19 years old, my grandfather died. He'd gotten sick earlier that year, and I had flown to China to take care of him. The first night I landed, he got stuck in the bathtub, too weak to lift himself. I got to feel useful. I was watching Wimbledon and Pete Sampras was playing. As I watched the ball back and forth, my grandma politely asked me to come and help. I wanted to watch tennis. Grandpa was sitting in the bathtub. I reached for his shriveled body and pulled him up. Grandma gave him the bathrobe. I was worried that I had hurt him. He made it until January 4th. That morning, my sisters and I were playing with a video camera. We watched a recording that I had made on vacation and sang improvised songs together and filmed them. Grandpa interrupted to tell me that he had a dream about being on a field. I filmed it. We hugged him and told him that we loved him and got on a plane to Hong Kong. When we landed, my cell phone rang and my dad told me that he had died. Mariana and Rosa sat on the ground and wept. But I didn't know how to cry. It was 5:30 p.m. and I was wearing a new pair of sunglasses. Six. There's a funny American story about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. The two conceivers of the Declaration of Independence were bitter political rivals, each beating the other in successive campaigns in the race for the presidency. They held high offices and commanded great respect. They hated each other, and it was legendary. When the two grew old, each retired to his home to live out his glorious life. 50 years to the day that he and Jefferson had worked on the Declaration, old John lay at home in his bed, wasting away. He'd made a pact with himself that he would outlive Jefferson. And God be damned if he failed now. As he neared the end, those in his estate gathered around him. He turned, looked at them, and uttered one final phrase. Jefferson live. And then he expired. The phrase was an unintentional lie, however, because Jefferson had actually expired 3 hours earlier at his own home in Monticello, Virginia. Now, I first heard this story when I was studying in the States, and we thought that our professor was lying to us, unintentionally, like John Adams had. A subsequent encyclopedia article, though, confirmed the truth. And if an encyclopedia can lie, well, there's not much point, is there? Anyway, it was raining outside, and there's not much to do in Hong Kong when it rains. I close my eyes and imagine, who will I hate most when I prepare for death? Thank you.